Everyone. We want to welcome everyone here tonight, and those of you that are joining us for the very first time, want to welcome you as well. We have had an unbelievable last 8 weeks of Tuesday Talks where so many people have come to our webinar and talked about a lot of different things, and today we want to introduce you to an amazing guest speaker. And so what we're going to do without any further ado, I want to just make sure I get my clicker here. I don't know if my clicker's set up or not, but anyway, let's see here. Yeah, it's set up here. Let's go. So we're going to go for about an hour today, and we've got a guest speaker that is going to show you a short little PowerPoint, and then we're going to do some Q&A, and then I'm going to add some value for you guys as well tonight at the end, and then we'll call it a night. And so I just want you guys to know how grateful we are that you are all doing safe, that you're well, and that you are tuning in tonight wherever you are. We've got people from Canada, all the way from the East Coast to the West Coast, and we've got brand new people on here today, and we've got people who are starting, who have come back on a weekly basis and ask other friends and family to join us tonight, which is extraordinary. And so we're absolutely fired up that you're here with us today. I want to go ahead and just start my PowerPoint and give you guys a quick some announcements. So here we go. Let me just get my PowerPoint up. Okay. So the first thing we're going to do is just make a few announcements here and give some other people a few minutes to dial in. A couple announcements this coming Saturday at 11 o'clock a.m. Pacific Standard Time. I've got an amazing friend of mine named Paul Hart who's going to be joining us at 11 o'clock a.m. And you don't want to miss this extraordinary individual. He is an entrepreneur, has built an empire, and still continuing to grow. And so he'll be on with you at 11 o'clock, dropping some big bombshells. And then this coming Saturday, also at 2 o'clock, so it's the same time. So this one starts from 11 to like 12. We'll go for about an hour, give you some time to grab a bite to eat. If you're in the West Coast, if you're in the East Coast, different time zone, but just kind of switch that time up. Maybe we should probably put 11 o'clock Pacific time next time and add Eastern time, just so we can be a little more clear for the people in the East Coast. And then a few hours later, we're going to have this man, a guy by the name of Angel Rivera, who will be tuning in and doing an awesome webinar on how to brand yourself. And that will be from 2 to 4. Now, you do have to go to tgrworldtour.com and make sure that you register for this amazing event. And this individual is the guy who helped me also with my brand and still continues to do so. And then, of course, he's got so much stuff that he wants to share with you guys that afternoon. And then after that, this next Tuesday, just so you guys all know, we've got an amazing guy. He is just an incredible entrepreneur himself, a guy named Kevin. He is a member of a group called Pentatonics, who's won numerous Grammy Award-winning their Grammy Award-winning band or group, if you would. And I want him to tune in and just kind of give some ideas of what it takes to be an entrepreneur, because he's also, doing some other businesses on the side as well. And that will be at 6:30 p.m. So one of the things that I wanted you guys to do is change your times, because last week we did a survey and we asked a lot of you guys to give us an idea if you wanted to still continue 7:30 or move it up just about an hour so that the people in the Midwest and the East Coast can also dial into our webinars and catch us at a reasonable time. So we heard you guys loud and clear, and so we are making the changes for you guys. And we have moved this up to 6 o'clock. What we'll do is we start at 6, but at 6 o'clock you'll have a chance to get in, because a lot of times, we have 1,000+ people, and then you can't get in, so people will dial in early, and we'll get started right at 6:30. So this is an amazing guy. He'll tune in with us next week on Tuesday, and then of course, so we've now changed our time officially to 6:30 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. So again, it's still kind of late for those of you in the East Coast. That's 9:30, but it's better than having it at 10:30. So here we are at 6:30 p.m. And that's about as early as we can go, because for us in the West Coast, we still have people that have to work until 6 o'clock. And so, so we're going to start right at 6:30. Okay. Now, the other thing we've been talking about is having a movie night, and I've talked to members of my team and just what we're doing with the movie. And when you sit there and you think about a man named Napoleon Hill, who wrote a book called Think and Grow Rich in the 1930s, which is an amazing book, and if you sit there and think about it, that he actually wrote the book during the Great Depression. And, right now, many of you might be thinking that we're going through a Great Depression right now, which, it all depends on, whose boat you're in, right? I mean, when the times are tough, like when the waters are really rough, and you're getting 20-foot swells out there in the middle of the ocean, and you're, in a little, rowboat, you're going to be going through some tough times, right? But if you're on an aircraft carrier, it won't be as bad. It's still going to be bad, but not as bad. And so, during these turbulent times, I always ask people, what type of vehicle are you in? And, when you think about the people during the Great Depression, and of course I wasn't even born then, but I mean, I do read a lot of history of what the Great Depression was like. And, a lot of people today may think that we're in the Great Depression, but I'll be honest with you, we're pretty far from the Great Depression, because a lot of people think that we're there. And again, if you're going through some tough times, you may think that you're there. But just to help you out, we wanted to stream this movie for you. You just got to go to johnshinmovie.com, and it's only $5. It's $5 to you can download the movie for $5. And we want to do a movie night with you guys on Friday night. And so you could tune in, bring your family, your kids. This is a family movie. We encourage this for children as well. And so we want them to all sit down. And then hopefully once you watch this movie, it'll help you to think a little bit differently and know how to handle adversity, right? And Napoleon Hill talks about having adversity in life and how to handle that in his book very well. He has some wonderful illustrations on how to handle adversity, okay? But I'll tell you what, during this time of quarantine, and I know that several people here in Los Angeles, we were just told that this quarantine may end up going to the end of July. But I'll tell you what, I love this slide here, because I want you to know, if you're joining us for the very first time, if you don't come out of this quarantine with a new skill, with some new knowledge, or a new side business or hustle, then here's the thing: you didn't lack time, but you lack discipline. Okay? Because one of the biggest excuses I get from people all the time is they always say, I don't have time, John. I don't have time to start a business. Well, what better time than now to start a business? And I'll tell you what, I became an entrepreneur 26 years ago. And I had a pretty good education. I mean, I went and got my bachelor's degree. I got my MBA. I got my Juris Doctorate degree in law. And I became an attorney and met my wife. And my wife ended up going into the financial service industry. And despite all the education, and a lot of people will knock my alma mater. I went to the University of Southern California, USC, and I know there's some names, different acronyms for the University of Spoiled Children, and all sorts of stuff, right? The bottom line is I feel like I've got a pretty good education, but despite my education, I'll be honest with you, and there's a lot of smart people out there today that didn't know the 6 steps to financial security. And so these 6 steps that I'm going to share with you, if you're joining us for the very first time, let me just tell you that you really need to hone in on these 6 steps to financial security. One is increasing your cash flow. And that kind of goes back to this. What better way than start a side hustle and a side business to increase your cash flow, right? Number 2 is to manage your debt. Number 3 is to make sure you have an emergency fund, because I don't think that this will be the first time we ever had a pandemic. This is not the first time, and this will not be the last time we have a pandemic. And so you got to start building that emergency fund. And number 4 is to build proper protection, and making sure that you've got the right types of insurance policies in place. I mean, for crying out loud, folks, most people buy insurance on their little mobile devices and their iPads and their computers and their cars and things like that. And the things that matter most is your family. And most people don't consider buying health insurance or life insurance or having long-term care or disability. And all these things may be foreign language to you. But again, then it's even more imperative that you really get with the person who invited you here tonight to understand the 6 steps to financial security. And if you just dialed in because you saw my Facebook post or my Instagram post, I'm a serial entrepreneur. I've been an entrepreneur for the last almost 30 years. And I'll tell you what, it's one of the greatest decisions I ever made, is to become an entrepreneur. And despite the fact that you listen to other people who say, you know, that it's risky to start a business, I'll tell you what, I think it's riskier to rely on Social Security after working for corporate America for 40 years, okay? So I'll tell you what, I want you to start building your long-term retirement account, and finally is to preserve your assets and preserve your estate, okay? Now, these are things that we're gonna teach you on a weekly basis, but at the end of the day, before we get into the financial stuff today, and every week we have a different guest speaker, and every speaker has something different to talk to you about. We've got an expert in each one of these 6 areas. But at the same time, what we really need to shift and what we really need to change is the way you think up here in between these 6 inches, right? It's the intangibles, it's the psychology, right? And one of the things I've always asked people is, do you ever think about what you think about, right? Because it's imperative, because whatever you think about will affect the way you feel, and then the way you feel will affect the way you act. And then the way you act will determine your results. So let me say that one more time, how important it is to really think about what you're thinking about, right? If you're thinking about that this is a worldwide crisis, which it is, by the way, this pandemic is for some people, but for some people financially, it's the greatest time, right? I mean, I don't mean to rub this in and stick it in your face, because I know some of you are really struggling today. But for me, and I guess I can also probably say for our guest speaker, financially, during this pandemic, actually our cash flow has increased over the last 8 weeks, okay? And again, I'm not trying to rub that in, folks, right? And I'm not trying to be insensitive. I'm not trying to sound braggadocious, okay? I'm just trying to say that maybe your circumstances could be a little bit different if you had an extra $2,000, $3,000, $4,000, $5,000, $10,000 a month. And so, but we got to get you to think a little bit differently. And I want to caution you to stop watching the news, right? I mean, it's okay maybe to tune in for a few minutes and just get a little bit of an understanding of what's going on. But to be glued to CNN 24 hours a day, I think could be extremely harmful. So don't be addicted to that type of information that you're feeding into your mind, in your thinking process. Because as I said, whatever you think about will affect the way you feel, and the way you feel will determine the way you act, and then your actions determine your results. Well, I'll tell you what, one person that I can tell you who has had a tremendous impact in my life is this man that's on this screen. His name is Greg Kapp, and beside him is his beautiful wife, Tina. And these 2 individuals are so amazing. They're so, I could sit here for 2 hours and talk about his background, but his desire to serve people, and not just him, but his wife, his desire to give, like he's always giving, his unselfishness, right? His servant leadership in every capacity. And, you know, here he is, he's dialing in from the East Coast right now. He might be somewhere in Florida or somewhere in Minnesota. I'm not quite sure, but either way, there is a different time zone. And so he's dialed in, and he's one of the most generous men you'll ever meet. But I'll tell you what, he came from, not from millions and millions of dollars, but he came from being a post office worker, and he went from post office to a multi-mega millionaire. And today he has got more million-dollar earners than I know anybody in my inventory, in my Rolodex of people that I know. I don't know anybody other than this man right here who has built more millionaire entrepreneurs. And I am so excited that you all have a chance to meet one of the mentors that mentored me. And I know you've met a couple of my other mentors, but I'll tell you what, this person has got so much energy and so much passion. He's got more energy than some of you young entrepreneurs, man. You little 18-year-old, Mr. Greg Kapp, man, he's got more energy than some of you on this call. So without any further ado, let's welcome to this webinar. I know you're up on your feet. Please welcome Greg Kapp, everyone.
Hey, John, thank you for that wonderful introduction. And I think
Yeah.
you can tell.
Whoa, whoosh! All right.
What
Greg,
a great
welcome.
whoosh. Hey,
Yeah.
that was some great training, John, and that was a great overview for people that are new. And my name is Greg Kapp. I'm a senior executive with our company. And John is absolutely correct. Before I get into my story, I want to show you something, because you guys don't know how old I am, but my granddaughter taught me how to do this. And I want you all to know this right there. You see that? That's John and Arlene Shin, Senior Executive Vice Chairman. And guess what? They're a 5-time MVP of our company. John is too humble to tell you those things. 5-time MVP of our company, who's made millions and millions of dollars. And our company has a great debt to John, because he did a lot of this when our company first started. Way back in 2001, our distribution team was bought out by a big company out of the Netherlands called Aegon. And the reason they wanted us, everybody, is because we have this very unusual way to either find leaders or build leaders. And so I'm glad that my granddaughter taught me how to do that. Hello, everybody. So I grew up in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, and I got all C's and D's in high school. And so I immediately wanted to get a good job. So I got a job at the post office. My mother told me that was a good job. And I did that. Matt, you've heard this story many times, right? I did that for 15 years on the third shift. And I pretty much was counting down the years until I would retire. But one fateful day, my boss showed me an article in Time magazine about this balding football coach named Art Williams, who started a financial services company in Atlanta. And I remember this little article. All I remember, it said they hired school teachers, firefighters on a spare time basis, and they could make referrals. And there was a way they could make an extra $500 or $1,000 a month on referrals. And just from that little article, I wrote a letter asking, if Mr. Williams would send me some information on his company. And then somehow, by some kind of miracle, he sent me 2 plane tickets. I literally met this man. You know, he today is retired down here in Florida. As you can see, I live right across the street from Disney World. That's why I have that up there. But he lives right down here in Fort Lauderdale, and he's a billionaire today. And he told me something powerful the first day I met him. He said, Greg, 90% of your success will be understanding human nature. And that didn't even make sense to me, right? Because I thought this was a financial business. But he said, Greg, nobody cares what you know until they first know that you care. And then he told me something else. He said, Greg, nobody's going to join or buy from someone they don't like. Well, I used to be very shy back then. And I had a real hard time looking people in the eye. And did you know that shy people come across like a serial killer? And so I knew I was shy. My family knew I was shy. But the strangers that I would meet on referrals, they didn't know that about me. So I had to learn to overcome that. And so I learned this very simple word called ladder. Write this down. This is really going to help you with your people skills. There was a year, I think it was the year that John was the MVP, I wrote up over 330 sales myself. And it's because before I would go in the house tune, I always thought of the word ladder, L-A-D-D-E-R. Now, the L stands for look people in the eye. Because when you don't look people in the eye, your body language either says you don't know what you're doing or you're lying. The A stands for ask good questions, because you're trying to connect to people's hearts. See, if you connect to the head, you're going to get a lot of objections, right, Waslana? But when you learn to connect to the heart, right, that's how you can attract people to your business, and you can also show them these great products that we offer to families. And then the first D stands for once they start talking. So let's just say that somebody says that this man, he builds tree houses for all kinds of little kids in the neighborhood. And he's real proud of the fact. Well, you want to do your homework and talk about how did you first get into building tree houses, right? Because you need to make their opinion your opinion, right? because this is your first impression that you're going to get with them. The second D stands for don't change the subject. So if they happen to say they went to Maui for their 10th wedding anniversary, don't you interrupt them and say, well, you know, my family went to Maui. And then you start telling them all the things you did there. We saw whales, right? I caught a big fish. No, that's your chance. So look people in the eye, ask good questions that connect to the heart. Don't interrupt them now that they're opening up from the heart. Don't change the subject. And the E stands for empathize, right? Don't challenge everything they say. If they got an objection, don't jump on top of them. Say, you know what? Why do you have that opinion? Can you tell me how you came to that opinion about the little bit that I just told you? And then usually as they start opening up, they'll realize they just jumped to a conclusion, a wrong conclusion. And then the R stands for respond verbally, but more importantly, non-verbally. You know, I'll never forget when sweet Marla Isidro was at my home and I was telling her a story and my daughter Becky was with me. And Becky just kept nodding her head like this, and she'd say, yeah, yeah, yeah. And then Marla said, time out, time out, time out. And she said, Becky, you must have heard your father tell this story at least a couple hundred times. Why are you doing that? And she said, well, Marla, I know that the audience makes the speaker, and I'm just trying to make my father's story a little more interesting. And so then Marla said, you know, I'm going to go back to Los Angeles and I'm going to do that. And you know, we all know that Marla's one of the top 100 most influential Filipinos in America. So she said, I'm going to go back and I'm going to go, yeah, yeah. And I said, you know, that's kind of a German term. And I don't know that it's going to work with Filipinos. But anyway, my point is no one cares what you know till you first know that you care, right? And you never get a second chance to make a good first impression, right? So you shouldn't go in with an agenda. You should know what you want to accomplish. But that's one of the reasons I wrote up 330 sales the first year that we were with the new company that bought out Mr. Williams. And why was that? Because I knew our products were tremendous, right? And I believed in them. And then also write this in your notes. People buy your belief. You see, in the beginning, I didn't do well because I didn't really believe. I didn't know how to believe, right? And write this in your notes. You can make it if nobody ever believes in you, but you'll never make it if you don't first learn how to believe in yourself. And so there are many different facets to our company, but I know the first thing when you're prospecting, the first thing when you're on an appointment, you know, the first thing when you're being introduced to someone's friend, is you got to always remember first with the people skills, and then you come in and you talk about the opportunity and you talk about the income. You know, there's so many great people in this call, John. I made a list here of the top builders, and tied at number 5 is the great EVC Marlin. These are all SMDs or above. And she's tied with the great CEO Ina. So congratulations, you guys. You were tied for number 5 on this call. On his Zoom. Number 4, Shin, Roland, my goddaughter. Now tied for number 2 is Kiki. We all love Kiki. Doesn't she have so much joy? And the man that introduced me. This man makes so much money. Do you understand how many millions of dollars this man has made? Do you know his team last month in April did 2.5 million points of business? Now, what does that mean? That means his team got paid $2.5 million. And they also brought in over 1,500 brand new associates on his team. John's having record things happening in his company while the pandemic's going on. And the pandemic is sad, but I'm going to tell you a little story here in a minute that's going to, you'll probably never forget this story as long as you live. So tied for number 2, Kiki. Now, how do some of the rest of you feel that John Shin, with all the things he's got going on, is number 2? And number 1, Joe Umali. Joe, I am so proud of you. You have worked so hard. You're number 1. Now, when it comes to production, number 10, Ina Abrado. Number 9, John Shin. Number 8, Marla Isidro, who now relocated here to Florida. Number 7, and Lisa and Norman. Number 6, Jessica McGrath and Tony. Number 5, there's Kiki again. And number 4, a guy that just texted me. He just had a $6,000 sale, I believe. Toon and Shinny were number 4. Congratulations. Number 3, Shin. Way to go, Shin. And number 2. Who's number 2 on this entire call? Hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of people. Ray and Clarisol, congratulations to you. John, you got to be so proud of Ray and Clarisol. And then number 1, who's number 1? My godchildren, Matt and Ibby, were right at 50,000. So congratulations to all of you. And you know, that's what you want to do, right? You want to get results so that you can make money, take care of your family. Do you know I've been doing this for 33 years? I know I don't look like it because I started when I was 7, but this was my team's 3rd biggest month ever. Now, Toon, you got to think about that. See, you know, a lot of times people just say things to motivate people. No, that's over 400 months I've been in business. And this last month, and none of my offices were open. You know, my wife and I have over 1,000 SMDs on our team, right? Over 800 offices that we override, and none of them could go to the office. And I'm going to tell you why. And some of you aren't going to be able to stay sitting when I tell this story. And so you heard the story, how I met the great Art Williams, right? And so what happened was when the pandemic started here about probably 7 weeks ago, right? The bad news came. You can't use your offices. So none of our people could use their office. And you know, John, I didn't know how to Zoom because I'm too old. I'm turning 69, right? But one of the things you should ask yourself is, what I've already done 4 of these today. How can I have this much energy on the East Coast? Because I guard my heart from negative people. Write that one in your notes right there. You got to be careful about those negative vampires because they can suck out your energy. And John Shin knows I'm very good at, you know, I deal with people, but I disconnect from negative people. Because why? Negativity is contagious. I saved my positive energy from my wife, Tina. 45 years we've been married. For my children, for my 5 grandchildren, and for my team. And so anyways, when this thing hit, I never knew how to do a Zoom. And Cash, on your TEs, to always ask me, Papa, Cap, come on, do it. I said, no, I got a triple chin. I don't want to do one of those Zoom things, right? And so now I was forced to do it. And the first one I did, there were 3,000 people on it. And I just did what I'm doing tonight, right? And that like really stretched my vision, right? Then I found out that Rusty Hood, who happens to be on John Shin's team, was able to do over 20 Zoom appointments in one day. He had a hard time doing 20 appointments in a month before. And see, all these things were coming in, right? Like all of a sudden getting on these calls, there were all these people on there, right? So when I went to bed one night, I just had this thought that about every 100 years or so, a new revolutionary idea comes to an old industry. I don't know why I thought that thought, but I went to sleep thinking about that every 100 years or so, a new revolutionary idea comes to an old industry. And then when I woke up, everybody, you know what I said to my wife, Tina, the first thing out of my mouth? I said, honey, overnight, our whole company just became the #1 online financial services company in the world. And it did. Because, John, I used to have this recurring nightmare. I always had a nightmare that Amazon.com was going to merge with a company like, you know, New York Life or Merrill Lynch, some big financial company. And then they were going to start marketing products online. And John, you and I talked about this, right? That our company was slow to come into the technology side, right? And I had this nightmare because if that would have happened, folks, we would have been wiped out. Does everybody understand that? I mean, do you know that Amazon does 50% of all retail in the country? And so all of a sudden I realized that that's why we're doing so well during the pandemic. But some people are doing well, John, and some are not doing well. And you know what? I had a long talk with Jeff Levitan this morning. And the same thing's happening to all over the country. See, the people that know how to stay in warm markets, they were flourishing during this time. But the ones that had to go out and always kind of go in a cold market all the time, they haven't been able to go out because they've been stuck at home. And so that would be my advice to you, is learn during this time how to get in a warm market and stay in a warm market. I was in a warm market my entire career because that's the way I was taught to run the system. And so anyways, I don't want you to think this just happened overnight. It started with this man, Art Williams, way back in 1977. And so that was the foundation of our company. That was the formulation stage of our company. But every company gets to a certain point and they hit an explosion. And you know what? I'm here to tell you that throughout the summer, well, everybody in California is going to be kind of stuck in your home. Something big's going to be going on. And I just don't want any of you to miss it. You know, I'm going to show you something here. Since my granddaughter taught me this, I'm real fired up because Grandpa learned something new. You guys know who that is right there? That's not Jeff Levitan before he got a hairpiece. No, that's Jeff Bezos back in 1995 when he started Amazon.com. That's what he looked like, folks. And today, do you know, he took over an industry. You know, Penny's is filing for bankruptcy. Neiman Marcus is filing for bankruptcy. The retail companies just can't compete. And you know what? He had what? He doesn't market any new products. He simply got an idea of how to what? Sell the product differently online. Now I want you to look at this picture. Who's that? Who do you think that is? That's Swan Nguyen. I'm kidding. That's me and my wife in 1986. That's my daughter Beth, my daughter Becky, and that's my mother. My mother passed away, John, about a year after this picture that we took. And you know what? I thought I was dressed up in this picture. That's where I came from after all those years in the post office. And you know, a funny story, do any of you have family members that are a little skeptical and they maybe don't really want you to even talk to them about what you do? Well, my mother, you see, I don't know why, but my mother was German and she never hugged any of us kids. And when I met Mr. Art Williams, who was very successful, I was very intimidated by this man. And his wife, when we left the house, his wife hugged me like she was my long lost friend or my sister. I mean, I never hugged a woman like that before. Well, then he tried to hug me and I didn't even know how to handle it. And when I came home, my mother says to me, what's the deal with these rich people that flew you down there? I said, Mom, these people are wealthy. And the man, and they hugged me. And you know what? My mom immediately, because she was a worrier, she called my whole family and said, don't listen to Greg. He's in a scam. That really hurt my feelings, right? Because she wasn't upset I was a postal worker. Well, anyways, I asked her to come. She would never come to a meeting after that. No matter how much I begged her, the more I asked, the less she would come. So I said, will you please come to Disney World? Because we lived in Wisconsin. I said, please come to Disney World. And she goes, I don't want to go to your meeting. I said, you don't have to go to my meeting. Just watch the girls and take them to Disney World. We'll pay for the whole thing. She was like, fine. So now there's my mom. I want you to see this picture. She gets on a tram. Tina and I are in the convention, and she takes Beth and Becky to Magic Kingdom. And while she's on the tram, this is the old A.L. Williams company, somebody says to my mom, oh, are you in A.L. Williams? And she said, no, my son's in that thing. And they said, what's your son's name? And she said, Greg Kapp. And they said, Greg Kapp, the postal worker guy, we love your son. And then my mother, but then get this, Ibby, my mother believed the two strangers on the tram rather than her own son. But anyway, now I want you to look at this picture. See? Things happen. All of a sudden, there I am on a magazine cover. You see? That can happen to any of you that are listening right now. And then I want you to see this now. I want you to see this. This is big. This is big. This is big. This is big. You should take a screenshot of this. Did you see the old picture of Jeff Bezos sitting in that little office? Well, now 650 million customers buy a sale every week at Amazon. Can you believe that story? Now, you need to write that down. Their sales were only 51,000 in 1995, and their biggest competitor was Walmart, doing $89 billion. Who would have you have put your money on, Wasana? Right, Fidesz? Who would you have put your money on? And Lisa, who would you have put your money on? Amazon at 51,000 or Walmart at 89 billion? Well, guess what? In 2017, Amazon passed up Walmart in market cap because Walmart realized, like Penny's did and Neiman Marcus did, that we're stuck with all this brick and mortar. Amazon doesn't have the brick and mortar. We're stuck with all these employees. Well, I'm here to tell you, you're here at the beginning of this. WFG is going to pay out $1 billion in commissions in 2020. If you understand the story that happened with Amazon, and we're in a much bigger industry, write this in your notes. The retail industry is only 14 trillion. Our industry is 63 trillion. Do you have any idea how much our company is going to pay out by the year 2030? After 10 years of doing Zoom presentations like this? Did you know that Danny Ebert, who's also on John Shin's team, told me he drove a leg 4 deep in just 10 minutes. You see, nothing's the same, but it might be the same for you. And I'm not trying to motivate anybody by doing this. I'm just saying to you that something's happening and I don't want anybody to fall behind. Wow, who's that? Could that possibly be one of the top 100 Filipinos successful Filipinos in America today? Do you know that Marla's greatest strength is her faith? She had the faith to relocate down here in Florida. She will never let me get off the phone without saying a prayer first. This woman has so much faith. Now, what's the opposite of faith, everybody? It's fear. So see, the reason she became an MVP in a company, right? She became the MVP of the company in her second year because she did everything John told her to do. And she started making $500,000 a year passively by her 5th year. Because the opposite of, if you don't have faith, then be assured of the fact that you have fear. Now, who's this picture? Oh, Toon and Ina, CEOs. Look at them. They came in this company. They're doing tremendous things. I'm just so honored and blessed to have all of you being part of our organization. I just feel extremely blessed that all of you are here. Now I'm going to write this. I'm going to give you a couple more tips, and then I'm going to turn it over to John. What's the difference between people that make $50,000 a year and $500,000 a year here? Well, one sells a product, and guess what? Nobody really cares about an illustration. They care about what they're going to do with the money that they're going to have at the end. And so the one that makes $500,000 a year sells the dream of the product. Does everybody get the difference? One person sells a product, right? It might be an IUL, it might be a rollover, right? And then, and the other one of them sells the dream of the product. One person recruits people to a part-time financial services company, and the other person finds out what somebody wants and says, you know what, I can get you that. So in other words, if I was sitting down with Matt and Ibby, and they got that little son named Anton, which is the exact name of my father, isn't that a big coincidence? And I was going over to see him with Toon, and I said, Toon, tell me about Matt and Ibby. And they said, you know what, Greg, they want to make $1,000 a month because they can't afford to send their son Anton to a private school. And they said they'll do anything. Well, I take that information and I say, you know what, Matt and Ibby, you come highly recommended by Toon because we're in financial services. You have to have a lot of integrity to come to our company. But he also told me that you're coachable, you have a work ethic. What if you made an extra $1,000 or $2,000 a month in your spare time when you get started out? What would you two do with the money? And they would say, wow, we can't believe you asked us that, but we really want Anton to go to this private school. I'd say, what's the name of that school? And they'd say, St. Michael's. And I said, I'm telling you right now, you introduce 2 or 3 families to your friend Toon and I'm going to show you where you're going to get that money. And we're going to put your son Anton into St. Michael's. You see, They don't care about Aegon. They don't care about the fact that we do 60% of all Nationwide's business. They don't care about Transamerica. They care about that. So see, sometimes you might find yourself not attracting people because you're spending too much time on too many details that don't affect those people. So remember that. Always remember that. And then write this in your notes. Knowledge never creates activity, but activity will always create knowledge. Got it? Knowledge, you can be on as many Zooms as you want, but that's not really, you know what I mean? That's not creating the knowledge you need. But if you get active, like you should write down right now and have the courage to do it, write down how many phone calls you made today. See, and if you only made a couple, my question to you is, why? Why you do that? All right, Johnny, I'm going to turn it back to you. Congratulations again. I'm going to post this picture right here before I turn it back to you. I think everybody needs to see this picture one more time. Who is the 5-time MVP of our company? Making millions and millions of dollars, and his team last month did $2.5 million of business, which means that's profit. And he brought in a new 1,500 associates around the country. You know, John, here's my prayer, that I live long enough to read the books that are going to be written about you and Arlene, because you are a great warrior. And I always say this company owes you such a debt of gratitude for all that you've done for this company. I'm turning it back over to you, John.
Thank you, Greg. All right. Thank you for that so much, Greg. Appreciate the material you shared with us, and thank you for the recognition for 5 times. But I appreciate all that you've done as a friend, as a mentor, as a business person. You're such a generous person, you know, and you don't even have to be working right now, yet you still continue to do more meetings and webinars and motivational and inspirational talks every single day. And I appreciate everything you've done for my organization. And I mean that sincerely, Greg. I mean, you really could be somewhere. I mean, you're in paradise now anyway, right? Earlier I said Minnesota, but I meant to say Wisconsin. But I mean, you're living in paradise. You've got your beautiful mansion down there. And what better place than to be right there in Walt Disney World? I'm telling you, Greg, when I went down to your house and we were driving around, it literally felt like a Disney set. And I was inside Disney's like backyard, like, you know, set, kind of like going to Universal Studios and doing like a tour. And I loved it. And so you're living in paradise down there. Greg, can I just ask you a few questions? Because I know some people of you guys are joining us right now. If there's some questions you'd like to ask, do it down below on the Q&A, and I'll try to get to them all. I do have some of my own content that I want to share with you guys, but I wanted to ask Greg a couple questions here. How did Greg say it? You come highly recommended. Oh, okay. So my first question for you is for people who are handling adversity today, right? You know, all the adversity, whether it's just the emotional adversity, and they might be asking to themselves, like, why is this happening to me? You know, and the adversity that you had. I mean, you know, people look at you today, Greg, you and Tina, and go, oh my God, Greg and Tina, they're so lucky. Look at where they're at today, because you got to where you are by luck, right, Greg? But I know you had faith in the system. I know you had faith in yourself and the business and the people you surrounded yourself. But for people who are struggling today that aren't making a lot of money, and that you know, maybe they have a lost one, you know, how would you tell them to handle adversity and why this is happening to them? Because I know some people have said, why has this always happened to me? You know, so what would be your response to that?
Well, you know, I think we learned it from our parents, because I always thought adversity was bad, John, because my father did. So every time something bad happened in our house, my father would get real angry. And so when I got into business, I did the same thing until I read that book that you're going to have that movie about, right? That book, Think and Grow Rich. And it says in the book that every adversity in our life has a benefit equal or greater than the adversity if we focus on the benefit and not the adversity. Well, that was very hard for me to do in the beginning, because I always would say, like, why do these bad things keep happening to me? I'd hire some people, I'd train them, and they'd quit. I'd write up a sale and then they would change their mind. You know what I mean? It seems so personal to me. And then I learned a couple of things about adversity, because see, when you learn to handle adversity, you can't be stopped in life. And so, first of all, you can't take it so personal, because whenever you are setting goals, there will be adversity. See, at some point, you got to have a paradigm shift, because I always say this, John, that if you have a business and you're setting goals, then you're always going to be in one of these three positions in life. Number one, you're going to be in a storm. Something bad's happening, right? Maybe your child is sick, right? Maybe your parents are hurting about something. Maybe your son got a DUI, driving a car. So you're either in a storm, number one, or number two, you're just coming out of a storm and you're going like this. Wow, I'm so glad I got out of that one. And then guess what number three is? If you're not in a storm and you're not just coming out of a storm, you're about to enter a storm. So you see, at some point, you got to have a paradigm that from now on, I'm not going to react to adversity. I'm going to respond to adversity, because there's a big blessing that comes to people that learn to say things like, every adversity has a benefit. I've been saying it for years. I'll give you a good example, John. I get a brand new Lincoln Navigator way back in the late 90s, and I'm coming home from an appointment, and the two left lanes are closed because of traffic. And it's up in Wisconsin. I'm just sitting like this. And I'm sitting right behind a semi-trailer. And I don't know it, but on the top of a hill behind me is a driver of a semi filled with truck wheels, not truck tires, truck wheels. And he falls asleep. And I don't know it. And when he hit the back of my Lincoln Navigator, I must have gone like this, because somehow I went out into a farm field over 100 yards away. And I immediately thought I was getting out of my vehicle. And when I got out, I was really confused, because there was fire trucks on the freeway, ambulances on the freeway, many sheriffs on the freeway. So I come walking down the middle of the highway like this, and the sheriff says, where'd you come from? I said, that's my vehicle over there. He said, are you okay? I said, I'm fine. He said, well, your pants are all filled with blood. And then when I went back to my car, I realized I actually broke off my whole seat. So I must have hit the steering wheel, broke the back. So they told me to get in the ambulance. And I called my wife, Tina. And at this point in my life, everybody, I learned, don't speak adversity out of your mouth. So I called Tina. I said, honey, I've been involved in an accident, but something good's going to come from this. And I told her I would call her when I got to the hospital. And, you know, that was that period where I was kind of bedridden there, John, for about 6 months. And I remember when I couldn't come to a convention. And, you know, as a great leader, that really hurt me. And I remember Jeff Levitan asked me if I was going to be able to go. And I said, Jeff, I feel so bad. I'm not going to be able to go. I just can't get out of bed. I mean, I just can't get out of bed. And do you know that Jeff Levitan said, Greg, how many people have you helped in your lifetime? I mean, man, do you understand how people feel about you? You quit worrying about your health. You just get better. And I didn't know it, but he called you up, John, remember? And he said, look, what's Greg Kapp done for your business, right? Then he called up Jamie, and he called up Rob Day, and he called a bunch of people up. And then he said, let's show Greg Kapp something. And what you all did for me, and I didn't even know it, I had big income at the time, but my income went up 50% during the time I was laid up. And I came out of it, right, stronger than I did before the accident. And so that's why I've learned that don't react to adversity anymore. Respond to it by saying things like, the only easy day was yesterday, right? If the trial doesn't kill me, it's going to make me stronger, right? Or you know, a setback is a setup for a comeback. So that's my best advice, is we all get adversity. John Shin's had a boatload of adversity, but he's always on fire. He's always prepared. He always gives the best trainings. Why? Because he learned Marla's the same way, Ina's the same way, Toon's the same way. So, you know, that's called mental toughness. And if that's all they taught me here, that was worth millions to me, because I've been able to teach it to my family, John. And right. And so that's my response to adversity is just realize that it's going to come to you, but leverage it.
Great.
Learn how to leverage it for your side. Good question there, John.
Yeah, we got another person here is asking, Gary Dennis asking, what or how do you get great at selling the dream? How does Greg Kapp sell the dream? How do you sell the dream?
I find out what somebody wants, and I let them know they can get it through here. So, I say to people, look, what if you made $1,500 a month or $2,000 a month? What would be important to you? Well, someone might say, you know what, I really want my spouse to stay home with our kids. Well, another person says, I want to get rid of this junk of heap car I got. You see? So then what I do, I find out what their problem is, and I make our company be the answer to their problem. So I say to the guy, but see, you got to go deeper. I say, well, let's say we're making $1,500 a month part-time. What kind of car would you drive? The guy go like, I'd like a Lexus. I go, really? Do you know what model? And then he tells me the model. I say, do you know what color? And I say, man, what's it going to be like when you pull up to all your friends and you got that that Lexus now? You see? Or I say, how's it going to make you feel when you're making enough money that your spouse can stay home with your kids? So number one, find a problem. And everyone's got a problem, right, John?
Yeah.
Sometimes people think only poor people have problems. No, you show me a guy that owns 9 hotels in LA, he's got problems, man. So see, here's what I would tell him. I'd say, man, you got way too many employees, don't you? And he'd say, yeah. I said, I don't have any employees. And I'd say, you got way too much inventory, don't you? And he'd go, crap, I got so much. I said, I don't have any inventory. I said, I have no inventory. I have no employees. And every Tuesday and Friday, I get a check. And some of the people I override weren't even born when I started.
Yeah.
And see, so in other words, and guess what? The moment you sell the dream to somebody, you sell it to yourself. So even if you did an appointment and you sold the dream to somebody and they said no to you, you would be on fire when you come out. I'll tell you this, John. When I was in Milwaukee, I could tell which people were not doing appointments because they always came in telling me their problems. And I could tell the people that were running, appointments because they were selling themselves the dream. You can't sell the dream to somebody without selling it to yourself too. So find a problem, and then the same thing with the product, right? I say, look, this is how I sell the dream of the product. I'd say, you know what? Isn't it sad that Americans are the worst savers in the world? Then they're going to say to themselves, well, we're not saving any money. I say, but then you save money, you go in the market, it goes up, and then it tanks, you lose all your money like in 2008. And then I said, and then you finally got some money, and the good old IRS comes and takes their chop. I said, what does IRS stand for? I always would say this, I'm really sorry. So I say, I don't want to depress you. That's not why I came to your house. But you know what? We got a product where you can put in 50 a month, and you can put in 500 a month. You can put in 5,000 a month. But when the market goes up, your money goes up all the way to 15%. But when the market tanks, they guarantee your principal. But when you access it, you don't have to wait till you're as old as me. You can take it out when you're 35, 40 with no penalties and no taxes. And then when you take the whole thing out at the end, you pay no state or federal taxes at all. And hardly nobody knows about it. And if anything were to happen to you as the breadwinner, it self-completes itself and takes care of your family, all tax-free. Totally. I hope you don't have any medical problems. See, and then you got to take it away. If you're going to sell the dream and you don't take it away, it looks too good to be true. So always remember, whether it's attracting to the business or the product. See, I would immediately, when they say, wow, how can I put in $300 a month? I said, well, I can't promise you anything because there are people being rejected. You don't have any medical challenges, do you? And then I go to bat for them. I do a trial close. I say, I'll tell you what, why don't we get this thing done in a computer tonight? Because I got to get it submitted first. And I can't make you any promises, so keep your fingers crossed. But you know what? If you get approved medically, then we'll come back the second time. And then if you want to keep it, you keep it. So those are little keys in there of how to sell the dream of the business, how to sell the dream of the product. Because when you sell the dream, right, John? It's funny. John's the best at this. You connect to the heart. See, I used to not sell the dream. Right? And I connected to the head. This is why I kept getting think it over. I don't know. I want to think it over. And then I learned this thing I'm teaching you, and I caught it because someone taught it to me like I'm teaching it to you. And I said, I caught it. And then all of a sudden I was connecting. This is where all decisions are made. This is where all objections are. And all of us, we get a little too technical with our presentations, and see, the more technical you get your presentation, the more disagreements there are in there. And when someone disagrees with us, they don't really like us right then. So I always talk concepts on the first appointment, and I close the deal on the second appointment.
Great. Thank you, Greg. And then my last question for you here for the night is, how do you handle an associate who is not coachable?
Oh boy, you got about 12 hours?
Yeah, you got the 2-minute version for that?
Yeah. Well, you know what? We all run into people that are like that. You know what I mean? First of all, that's what you got to, that's why I'm always looking for people that are coachable. And, you know what I mean? And so a lot of times what I try to do is I try to bring people in underneath them. I was always real good at getting people underneath people because it would help me with them. And because if you try to change a person, you're going to create an enemy, right? Because I'll promise you right now, if I tried to change Toon, and then later he figured out, oh, so John Shin and Jeff Levitan and you tried to change me, then down deep, he'd resent that of me. And so I learned it's very hard to change people. You've got to get them to want to change themselves. And the way I did that was I would speak greatness into them, because that's really what Art Williams did to me. He didn't tell me what was wrong with me. Every time I was around him, he said, you know, Greg, you're going to be big in the business one day. And I was like, I'm writing up like 1 term sale a month. But he always would speak greatness into me. And then that wanted me to change. But see, a lot of us say, okay, I got to get this person to get more outgoing. I got to get this one not to talk so much. You know, I got to get this one not to do this. And you see, I got out of the people changing business a long time ago, because guess what? If it's that hard for me to change myself, how am I going to change other people? But I found out that when you speak greatness into people, they do change.
Wow, that's awesome. Very profound. Thank you, Greg. Well, thank you guys for all those questions. And Greg Kapp, thank you for all your knowledge and your wisdom that you shared with us tonight. Say hello to Tina for us out there in Florida. Be safe. Thanks for joining and jumping on with us tonight. We appreciate you. And for those of you that wanted to get more information, you wanted to like rehear what he was saying, by tomorrow I will have this video uploaded on YouTube where you guys can visit it and check it out and listen to Greg Kapp over again. And I hope you guys listen to his podcast and follow Greg Kapp on Instagram as well. So Greg, what is your Instagram handle, by the way? Or did he just dial off? He might have just dialed off. He just left. Okay. Well, listen, you guys, I wanted to finish your my presentation with you guys real quickly here. And then, you know, if you guys can, if you can find him on Instagram, go ahead and send him a thank you or whatever. In fact, someone just here it is. They're giving it to me right now. His Instagram handle is Greg_Kapp. And so you just want to go and follow him. He's got great content and stuff, quotes that he puts on his post on his Instagram. All right. Let me, one of the things I want to talk to you guys about here in a few minutes, and we're going to go just a tad over time, is building your brand. Right now, we're living in a world where branding is not one thing, but it is everything. Okay. So if you sit there and you look at people like Ed Milet, you know, who, you know, was in WFG and now he's building his own brand and he's got, you know, his logo and everything like that. More and more people, Grant Cardone, right, just kind of came out of left field. Gary Vaynerchuk came out of left field. So everything you are, everything you say, and everything you do represents your brand. And so the question really is, why is personal branding so important today? Okay, so let's talk about branding, and I want to make my case to you why branding is so important. So number one is this: business is becoming more competitive and more global, and all companies compete for the same customers. I mean, think about that for a second, right? There's only 330 million people here in the United States, and there's only so many around the world. I mean, billions around the world. But at a certain point, we're all competing for the same customers, right? So you got to understand that, you know, the person who has the brand, that more people will lean towards them, right? People will buy from people ultimately it is the personal relationship that makes the sale. So what is your brand? What kind of a personal relationship are you building with all these different people? Okay. Another thing is, as we talk about why is personal branding so important, is because a strong personal brand can be the tipping point when a buyer evaluates your product or service. So let's just face it. We're now living in a world where people, when you meet them or when you're doing a webinar, people are already Googling you. They're already Googling you online, finding out who you are and what is your brand. Okay, so it's very, very important. Next is, let me see here. So just gotten my phone's blowing up right now. All right, here we go. Another reason that personal branding is a compelling personal brand provides the guidance you need to shape your strategy and adds enormous value to your business, okay? And so now I'm gonna just go on here. We're gonna talk some more. It helps you stay focused on how you and your business create value, okay? Another reason why you gotta build your personal brand. And then ultimately, it leads to a profound personal and professional satisfaction, okay? This is why you got to build up your personal brand. So the question I have for you is, if we went online and we try to figure out who you are, okay, who are you, right? Who are you online if we were to Google your name? I want you to go and Google your name tonight after we get off this call. I want you to go and Google your name, and I want you to see, who are you, okay? Well, a good friend of mine, his name is Brandon T. Adams, who got this great acronym for what building your brand is. And so I want you guys to know, if you take the word brand, okay, basically the letter B stands for books and blogs, okay? So the reason why you want to have a book or a blog, okay, is to establish yourself as an expert in the field by writing a book or creating a blog. So that's how you build your brand on part B. What is R? R basically means to record some video content. So like what I'm doing with you guys right now is I'm recording video content and creating videos and posting them online is one of the quickest ways to build your brand through social media platforms and connect with your audience, okay? This coming Saturday, one of the things that we're gonna do between 2 and 4 is we're gonna teach you how to go on LinkedIn and know how to use LinkedIn and try to get more clients, through LinkedIn, right? So the other thing here is your audio, speaking and podcasting. So again, like this video that we're doing, or our webinar that we're doing tonight, I'm actually gonna turn that into a podcast. So one of the things is you gotta discuss how to utilize public speaking, which a lot of you guys, believe it or not, are amazing speakers, and podcasting to grow your brand and your influence, all right? And then your N, what N stands for, is network at events. Excuse me, so you gotta learn how to build your brand through networking events, how to attract clients and gain valuable business relationships through hosting your events. So one of the things I wanna encourage you guys to do, and what we're gonna talk about this coming Saturday, is you creating your own webinar, because you can't really go and create events right now, obviously, but you wanna start creating a network, right, where you're doing some Zoom or webinars or whatever it is, that you can start to attract more people on that, and then you get different people or myself to jump on for a few minutes and say a few things on your own network. Okay, so that's what I mean by network at events or /Zoom. And finally, D, what it stands for is delivering value, okay? So you got to plan on how you're going to deliver value to your customers. Consistently delivering value to your customers through products and services will help build a reliable and a consistent brand, okay? So don't try to be the jack of all trades and have like one channel talking about a million different things, but what is your brand? Like when people see your name, what will they think about, right? And so again, very, very important that you understand this whole branding, and we break this down in creating books, recording, audio, your network, and you're delivering some value and some content. So as I said earlier, if you joined us later tonight, I said, if you don't come out of this quarantine with a new skill, with a new knowledge, a new side hustle, then it wasn't that you lacked time, but you lacked discipline. And I want you guys to inject a massive amount of discipline into yourself. And I want you to start, getting with the person who invited you here today, or give me a call, hit me on, DM me on Instagram, or hit me up on Facebook, right? Get my cell number and then call me and let's talk about this, right? Like how to help you get more discipline into your life so that you can grow, right? Internally inside, right? Internally up here, and then starting a business and growing, right? And making more money for you and your family. And so I've got some amazing friends that I'm bringing on. Again, earlier, if you joined us late, this coming Saturday, I've got a guy named Paul Hart who's going to be joining us in the morning at 11 o'clock Pacific time. Then that afternoon, so both on the same day on Saturday, you got to go and register for this event at tgrworldtour.com. You're going to register for this starting at 2 o'clock, 4 o'clock, and we're going to give you some awesome ways to help build your brand. And then again, next Tuesday, got this guy named Kevin, who's a Grammy Award winner, a member of Pentatonics, and we'd love to, hear from him and what he's got to say. And then, and that's gonna be next week on Tuesday. You'll see there's a new time change at 6:30 p.m. Pacific time. So for those of you that joined us a little late today, there's been a lot of people requesting that we move up our webinars to 6:30 instead of doing them at 7:30. And so we heard you loud and clear. So we're moving them up to 6:30 p.m. Pacific time. Okay, so that's what this next slide is here. And then again, in terms of movie night, you can just go to this website here at johnshinmovie.com, johnshinmovie.com, and just let us know what you think about doing your own movie kind of presentation, okay? And again, I just want to wish a few people a happy birthday. I want to wish. I do miss him very much. My friend Michael Simnowski, it is his birthday today. So we want to wish him a happy birthday. I got a text message here. Let's see. The person's name is Osmunda, O-S-M-U-N-D-A, Osmunda Jones. She's on the webinar right now, and we want to recognize her. She just got her first check today. And so it's always nice to get that first check. So congratulations, Osmundo. And by the way, Osmundo right now is in Texas. So we got people from all over the country right now, and we are so grateful that you've joined us. We hope that you continue to get value from us. And this coming Saturday and next Tuesday, we're going to give you a whole lot of information. And again, just want to encourage all of you to read my book, if you would. Just go to Amazon.com and get a copy of this. It is available now on, audio. And it is available on Kindle. And you can also download this movie at that website. So 2 things right now that you can be doing to help yourself out. And we hope that you continue to join us as we provide you more and more content. God bless every single one of you. Stay in your home, be quarantined, and we hope you got a lot of value out of this. Be blessed, everyone. Take care. We look forward to seeing you guys this coming Saturday. Good night, everyone. Take care now.